At the vault's peak, where ancient silk met a darkness unmeasured by stars, something vast stirred. From the tangled threads above, two eyes flared, crimson and eternal, like twin beacons in the void. Their sinister light swept downward, casting a long, malevolent shadow across the cavern's crystalline spires. A rumble, low and mournful, echoed through the hollows as the beast unfurled. She moved with the elegance of death itself, each limb a spined arc of obsidian grace, clicking as it found purchase against the jagged crystal walls. Threads, older than memory, trembled as she passed, as though the web itself bowed to its maker. The gem, the one spoken of in half-whispered legends and fevered dreams, flickered dimly upon its pedestal, now outshone by the terrible luminescence of the arachnid queen. She descended in silence, but the air screamed. Every heartbeat in the chamber aligned with the rhythm of her approach. Below, 5 stood in silence, scarred, hollow-eyed, none innocent. Not heroes, survivors, a sellsword with a blade rusted by sins that no rain could wash clean. A priest whose god had stopped answering, a witch with blood under her nails and ash on her breath. A thief too clever to die and too afraid to live. And the last, silent, masked, carrying the weight of a name no longer spoken. They did not breathe. Awe and terror held them in its thrall. This was not a creature born of mortal nature. This was a monarch of forgotten realms, infinite and eternal. Her massive body spanned the breadth of the cavern, each leg splaying outward like the arms of a god reaching to claim what was hers. At last, she touched the floor. The cavern shuddered as if it exhaled. 8 limbs settled, claws clicking softly, reverent and final. Her body, though monstrous, held a terrible majesty. Her face, if it could be called such, dripped with venom that hissed upon the stone. Fangs the length of daggers twitched in hunger or amusement. She watched them, not as prey, as trespassers. Her crimson gaze pierced through the veils of soul and purpose, judging each heart. Intelligence pulsed behind her eyes, not bestial, but ancient and wicked, shaped by eons spent in the dark. The air pressed in. A hum began, low and rhythmic, as if the very stones were chanting her name. Magic, raw, ancient, and pitiless, gathered at her feet, whispering of bargains sealed in blood. And in that terrible stillness, one truth reigned clear. The queen had not been sleeping. She had been waiting. Desperate screams reverberate around the hard stone walls as the echoes of suffering ring throughout the small chamber. Screeches from all 7 levels of hell shake the utter foundations of the final shreds of humanity left standing. Far in the distance, the clang of swords, piercing of armor, and ripping of flesh provide the backdrop to an orchestra of death. The glistening moon in the night sky silently watches the carnage below, breaking through the smog every so often to reveal the dark hordes surging through the settlement gates. Futile shouts from the doomed guards attempt to provide comfort for the last remaining townsfolk, but I know it's too late for anyone close enough to hear them. Betrayal of the highest order is at play tonight, and I was promised sanctuary from the terror that moves against my order. My mind races. How did they know? How did the ancient wards fail us? I need more time. As the tragedy unfolds below, I hastily tie the parchment to the final raven's leg, grasp the small creature in my hands, and ease him from the window. Swooping down from the high tower, his wings extend amongst the black sea below, and in a flash, the dark night swallows him whole. An easy escape the few of us left would trade the world for, yet sadly, death creeps ever closer this night. Stepping back from the window and clutching at the remaining papers on the table, I lunge quickly towards the open fire. Leaning against the wide wooden mantelpiece and without second thought, I toss the parchments into the flames, avoiding the bubbling pot below. Flames engulf the parchment, and the knowledge the Dread Leader seeks is gone within an instant. Rushing to the far side of the chamber, I fling on my baldric, tighten the straps, and slip my breastplate over my head. Picking up my sword, I slot it into this holster and step back towards the fireplace. I study the concoction brewing in the large black cauldron, almost willing it to completion. Fire-powered bubbles spit ferocious residue from within as a dark purple liquid swirls counterclockwise. The last component the Arch-Mystic convinced me would make this work. I couldn't wait any longer. It's only a matter of time before he reaches my chamber. Grabbing a small ladle from beside the fireplace, I take a large scoop and add the deep purple bile to the bottle atop the mantelpiece. As liquids meld and twist together, the bottle shakes ever so slightly before settling as a clear substance. As I take the bottle with my left hand, I pray that only one betrayal has crossed my path tonight. As I prepare to gulp down my one chance of surviving this night, a cold shiver runs down my spine. A feeling of dread fills the room. A dark liquid-like mist forces its way through the edges of the chamber door, and within a moment, all light sources are instantly extinguished. The stench of death fills the air, and the taste of fear lingers on my lips. As I freeze in place, the sound of footsteps approaching echo in my ears. Time stands still as I stare relentlessly at the wooden door in front of me, readying myself for what is to come. Options, choices, and decisions fly through my mind. Should I trust the Arch-Mystic or take my chances with a deal bound by death? As the inevitable draws closer, my fingertips toy endlessly with the pommel of my sword, providing a sliver of hope to a doomed man. Reason gives way to panic, and I slowly, almost reluctantly, draw my sword and take a protective stance. As the door handle slowly starts to turn and the door swings open, my heart sinks, and dread paralyzes my entire body. After a moment of brief silence, the archway begins to rumble as bright lights shoot from either side. They bolt upwards before eventually meeting at the keystone. The rumbling continues as century-long dust flies into the air before taking rest on any neighboring surface. The sound of mechanical cogs whirling, twisting and turning fill the air as the bramble barriers begin to recede into small orifices on the inside of the archway. The glowing light surrounding the stone begins to dim and leaves in its place the words, "Only those worthy may make the choice." Ducking carefully through the archway, I enter the small circular stone plaza and breathe in the magical aura surrounding this place. Drawing me in, 2 plinths goad me to come closer, and each host a deep basin. A third, slightly larger pedestal peers behind, holding a bright ball of power that gently bobs and emits a calming glow. As I'm pulled in closer, I can feel the power of the orb coursing through my every being, and the healing energy bounces around the surrounding pillars. Reaching my mark at the center, I gaze into the deep basins before me. On the left, an endless deep void, filled with swirling planets, dancing moons, and distant solar systems of bygone eras. On the right, everything I hold dear. My wife, my friends, my home, and, most importantly, my beloved Ali, carefully grabbing the orb with both hands and lowering it towards the basins. The moment I have feared the most hits me with a wave of anxiety, confusion, doubt, and guilt. A universe of questions run through my mind, and I search every experience lived, pleading to make this decision any easier. Questions fly, doubts persist, anxiety bubbles, then a single moment of clarity and silence. I've made my choice. The pain will be mine to bear. I quickly press my shaking hand firmly across the gaping mouth of the afflicted to silence it. My branded pale skin is in utter contrast against the mutilated, bloody mess that bellowed in pain as I crouched beside it. The abomination's eyes move slowly but curiously across the etched symbols in my forearm, studying them with a faint glint of familiarity before returning to its inhuman wailing. I bring the sharp edge of my blade towards the tortured head fused into the wall and push in one swift motion. The silver of the knife disappears into the red mush, and the wheezing stops instantly. I watch pitifully as the yellowing eyes of the form slowly close into silence and permanent peace. Crouching aside a rocky protrusion, I take a moment to catch my breath and allow the shaking to subside. The landscape around me was the epitome of a nightmare, barren, scorched, and desolate beyond comprehension. The ground around me is littered with jagged rocks and laced with twisted trees amongst a vast, sandy horizon. The air is heavy around my hot skin, thick with the stench of sulfur, and the sky a dark, ominous scarlet, casting an eerie glow on my surroundings. I sheath the dripping weapon in my scabbard and continue my lonely journey across the scorched earth and to the peak of the mountain before me. Mournful wailing fills the air from all directions, piercing my soul and leaving me with a shattering sense of hopelessness. The sounds emit like sirens from the broken souls scattered across the barren land, carrying with them a weight of unimaginable pain. I press on, driven by a single-minded determination to reach my goal and end this everlasting hell. Traversing the lethal terrain for what feels like an eternity, I reach the peak of a steep ridge and find myself standing before the gleaming, crystalline window. The pressure of the anomaly dances across my war-torn flesh like hot electricity. The white noise within my eardrums scream at 1,000 decibels, vibrating my very bones. The final step now awaits, and this by far would be the most grueling test I had ever faced. I had already lost everything that I held dear to this monstrous trial, and the scars of grief still weigh heavily on my soul. A salty tear ejects across my soiled cheek, and my fists clench like a tightening grip as I hesitate for a moment. Yet, I cannot break my promise. I cannot let them down, and I alone must destroy the ever-growing blight that plagues this world. With determination beginning to rise, I leap forward into the light, through the window and into my destiny. An eerie smoke rises from the dark sea below and filters upwards to join the thick, dense fog as the hull of our ship cuts silently through the rolling waves. Taking each in our stride, we sail forward with pace, power, and purpose. Only the gods will deny us our revenge tonight. High in the sky, the moon fights relentlessly to break through the layers of fog below. A few beams sneak between the cracks and cascade down onto the deck. The dim light plunges the ship into darkness, creating a formidable black silhouette that would drive fear into even the bravest of men. As we push forward, an unnatural wind howls and whips violently through the deck, battering the central mast, sending our banners flying into a rage. The mainsail bulges and thick ropes aggressively rattle against their wooden-clad surroundings, the whole ship wailing as it's pushed to the limit, and concentrated creaks emanate from the cabins below. Despite the pace, my ever-loyal crew continue to navigate the ship, moving with efficiency and purpose to keep us on track. Each man with a part to play, a role to fulfill, and all driven by the same goal, an unstoppable force rallying around a common cause. Descending the helm, I stride across the deck, passing by the occasional deckhand and reach the bow. Casting my eye across the dark horizon and into the vast, barren sea before me, lights form in the distance and the outline of a vibrant coastline comes into vision. On a small, protruding landmass stands a tall, elegant lighthouse, its blinking lamp welcoming us towards the shore, unaware of the beast it beckons and the irony at play. A small collection of civilian boats bob peacefully in the harbor. The lack of warships and any signs of defense highlight the arrogance that's fallen over these lands. Power leads to control, and control leads to complacency. Feasting on the riches of others comes at a price, and becoming too comfortable will be their downfall. With our landing only minutes away, I turn to face the crew and make the signal. Each spring into action, take their place and begin readying themselves for what is to come. Little do the scum of this nation know of the terror at their doorstep. Fear in its purest form comes for them this night, and all will succumb to our rage. Drunk on a power stronger than any rum and hell-bent on revenge, they will understand taking one of our own was more than a costly mistake. I have awaited this moment, and with each passing year, the fury has built, ready to burst from within me, and no mercy will be shown to those who stand in my way. The thought of him rotting in a cell, tortured beyond comprehension, dehumanized, and treated like a dog only fuels my desire. Brothers, bound by blood, and a pact lasting centuries, there isn't a sea I wouldn't cross to enact our ancient law. There will be no spoils tonight and no prisoners taken, only desolation and destruction. Utter annihilation of the highest order, and when we are done, not a soul will remember their names.